Cold, cold, and more cold. A Visit to a Newfoundland Boreal Forest by Karen Allen. This audiovisual presentation is a recreation of Karen's article that was originally published in Homeopathy Today magazine in February 2019. The absolute easternmost point in continental North America is in the little city of St. John's in Newfoundland, Canada. It is known for quaint architecture, a rich musical tradition, and local flocks of colorful puffin birds. Surrounding the city are incredible natural beauties, coastal headlands, and boreal forests. Beyond the city's central harbor, the western suburban area holds a lattice of little ponds and beautiful walking paths. One could imagine walking into C.S. Lewis's Narnia when stepping into the woodland paths, thick with young Christmas trees, moss-patched beeches, and ground-cover ferns. It looks green and lush, with a woodsy smell of loam and pine. Unlike hikes through the woods in Washington State's Cascade Mountains or California's redwoods, there is plenty of light. These are not shady, haunted woods. Sun pours across the trees and frequent meadows. The walking trail from St. John's City Center to the local Memorial University Botanic Gardens meanders through a suburban neighborhood, along a few ponds, and past meadows filled with birdsong. Just when the map on the iPhone shows that the Botanic Gardens are quite near, the trail turns uphill. 20 minutes and 394 steps. Yes, really. Later, the path ends, along the top of a wooded ridge in a garden of blue and yellow flowers. Once inside, the garden's walkways have signs that explain how local weather patterns affect the plant life in the area. The top of the Gulf Stream bathes the eastern coast and meets the Arctic waters coming from Labrador. This leads to some of the most dramatic weather patterns in the country. High winds, even hurricane force, are frequent visitors each winter. Newfoundland has the strongest winds of any Canadian province. Winter cyclones can bring up to 50-mile-per-hour winds. Locals say that it has a well-deserved reputation as one of the stormiest areas of the continent. Aconite and cold winds. The cold winds are a well-known aspect of the homeopathic remedy, Aconitum napellus. A large stand of aconite plants with long racemes of flowers stood along the edge of wooded area within the gardens. This remedy is often used for those who have been exposed to cold winds and then have a speedy onset of sore throat, fever, or other symptoms. It is often used for hot fevers in children that come on suddenly. Aconite is recognized as a high-velocity remedy, one in which symptoms come on quickly and can be relieved just as quickly. In one memorable case, a family member had gotten up for breakfast, feeling fine and healthy. In a hurry to eat and get out the door, he had gulped down a large glass of juice from the refrigerator. He commented on how cold it was and that it felt like a cold lump in his stomach. He left for work, but was home again within a few hours, feeling feverish and achy. The cold feeling he had experienced in his stomach after quickly drinking the cold juice had not stopped. It had spread, and by the time he got home, he was shaking with chills. Although symptoms of illness after cold drink was not exactly like a cold wind, it was close enough to the known pattern to merit a dose of Aconite 30C. Within 10 minutes, he was feeling better and ready to go back to work. Cold winds leave their mark in the local boreal forests with blowdowns. Light is abundant in these forests because any tree tall enough to catch the wind falls under the onslaught, taking nearby trees with it. This is why the woodland walks there are light-filled. The meadow formed when a tall tree falls create a tiny ecosystem that provides a windbreak and warmth, home to a wide variety of plants and thousands of butterflies. Ledum and cold water. Within these blow-down meadows, one of the first plants likely to be seen is Ledum palustre. It can grow there in full sun, dappled light, or deep shade. A short, shrubby plant with a white stem of flowers, this plant is also known as marsh tea. As an herbal tonic, the plant leaves are placed in cold water and left in a sunny location to steep for a little while. The resulting tea, when mild, is used to ease cough and bronchitis. Ledum has been used in medicine for centuries and came into the homeopathic materia medica quite early. The proving was conducted by Samuel Hahnemann. One of the most prominent symptoms is a strong feeling of coldness. There is a general lack of vital heat, or there can be a lack of heat in an injured part. The remedy has a strong affinity to fibrous tissue and is often used in joint problems. Most characteristically, the joint that is in pain will be cold to touch, and yet the person will prefer to have ice or other cold applications on the joint. The remedy is also associated with injury from puncture wounds. A client who benefited from Ledum had scheduled an appointment because of an odd sensation as if a tiny stream of cold water was running along the left side of her jaw. This had been happening for a few weeks. She said she would find herself trying to dry the cold water off the skin and often look in the mirror to make sure that there was not actually water there. The skin around her left jaw was cold to the touch, quite different from the skin temperature on the upper cheek, temple, or chin. When asked what had happened before this symptom appeared, she noted that she had fallen onto a bush while playing a volleyball game in a friend's backyard. A sharp branch from the bush had impaled her calf muscle on her right leg. When she arrived at the urgent care facility to have the wound taken care of, she was given a tetanus shot along with a few stitches for the leg. 2 days later, the sensation of trickling cold water along her jawline had begun. This sensation of cold water pouring over a body part was in the proving of Ledum. Along with the history of a puncture wound from the bush and the subsequent additional puncture of the tetanus vaccine, the pattern of Ledum was clear. She was given 3 doses of Ledum 30C over 24 hours. Within 2 days, the local coldness and the odd trickling water sensation were gone. Mitchella and cold inside. Another commonly seen plant in the botanic garden is the low-growing, trailing partridge berry. Known in Europe as lingon berry, these plants grow well in the acidic, rocky soils in Newfoundland. They flower in midsummer and then produce dark red berries that are high in vitamin C. Used to make juice and jam, every Newfoundland cook has a version of a favorite cake recipe loaded with partridge berries and made without eggs, which had been difficult to obtain in winter in the past. The partridge berry plant, Mitchella repens, has long been used in herbal medicine as a tonic for the urinary tract. It was also used to halt a pregnant woman's false labor pains, or to strengthen a weak labor once it had begun. In 1855, it was proved as a homeopathic remedy by Dr. Thomas Duncan. He wrote about the feeling of coldness in the entire alimentary tract and a feeling of chill that covered his entire body. The cold was so intense that any sensation of cold air was unbearable. Its characteristic symptom pattern calls to mind the cold environment there in Newfoundland. Particularly useful in women's complaints, this remedy state often has an experience of deep coldness in the lower abdomen and pelvis. There is a strong affinity to the neck of the bladder, with a sense of irritation in that location. These symptoms came together in the complaints of a pregnant woman in her mid-30s who scheduled an appointment because of chronic urinary problems. She often felt the symptoms of a urinary tract infection, but when her physician cultured the urine, there were no results. She described a frequent urge to urinate, with a feeling of hot pain at the entrance to the bladder. Her symptoms had begun during her 7th month of pregnancy, and her obstetrician related it to the growing baby compressing the bladder. She often felt cold, but not on the outside of her body. She noted that the coldness was felt inside her stomach and inside her intestines. She was given Mitchella repens 6C to take a few times daily, and her symptoms of chill and urinary irritation were gone within a week. She was much more comfortable for the remainder of her pregnancy. Sarracenia and cold horripilations. Another sign within the Botanic Gardens proudly proclaimed that the Newfoundland province's flower is the pitcher plant, Sarracenia purpurea. Pitcher plants are carnivorous, perennial herbs that grow in thick mats that cover marshy bogs. The plants are live for 20 to 30 years and are very hardy. Not only do they survive months of sub-zero temperatures, they also routinely survive fires, resprouting from their undersides. The characteristic pitcher-shaped leaf collects water, extending a red lip, that offers a perfect landing spot for unsuspecting prey. Unlike Venus flytrap, Sarracenia is not actually an insectivore. They are categorized as carnivorous because they consume a variety of bugs and other bog dwellers like small frogs. Any that drop into the belly of the pitcher gradually dissolve in the blend of rainwater, dew, and a digestive enzyme excreted by the plant. This remedy was brought into our homeopathic materia medica in 1862 by Dr. F. W. Morris, who discovered it in Nova Scotia. Approving was done by Minnesota homeopath Dr. Thomas Duncan in 1866. Resulting symptoms included intense chill, horripilations, which is a charming archaic term for goosebumps, and weakness on the back between the shoulder blades, as well as high fever. Let's review cold in the environment, cold in the remedy. State one of the fundamental tenets of homeopathy is its holistic perspective. Everything is connected to everything else. Each of these plants created proving symptoms of cold or fever and cold that seem to take the signature of the coldness of the environment around them. Aconite, Ledum, Mitchella, and Sarracenia each have a unique and individual pattern of the way in which cold plays a part, each different from each other and each useful for that person whose symptoms match, like cures like.